Over to you, Paresh sir. Your life.
Hello and welcome to another episode of In Conversation With. In Conversation With is a management series by CASI New York, where we invite senior professionals from the industry across countries, across businesses in search of executable advice. So today we have a very interesting session. We have one on financial inclusion and we have a financial inclusion expert, Kibwe, to talk through us about us. My name is Paresh and I'm a member of the board of directors at CASI New York. We are the world's largest platform for sustainability with a presence across 52 countries. We also run a pretty large volunteering platform with a reach of over 3 million volunteers. So thank you very much for joining all of you. Give a quick question. When you say financial inclusion, do you only mean that you will offer services to the have-nots, or is it an overall change in the banking scenario that you are aiming to?
Well, our mission is more than just the have-nots. I mean, we like to tell people that, we're here for the underbanked and the unbanked, but clearly as a solution in the space, our services are for everyone. So, we actually also white label solutions for financial institutions and also bigger, larger companies, because in this ecosystem, you cannot allow for the exclusion of anyone. And if it is that you're to put the underbanked and the unbanked in a space in which they can participate, then by extension, we need to include the bigger players. So it's not just for the have-nots, it's for everyone.
So when you run this company, WePay, what is the core value that you are adding? Is it only a rate cut in the prices, or are you aiming to add value to the consumers in some other way? So what is the core value proposition?
Well, one of the things that I'd probably first have to start with is understanding who and what WePay is. So WePay, by extension, at first, is really a solutions-oriented company. We are a group of developers. We are a software development company. So from that, attaching the financial side of it, that brought us into the space of fintech. So our services are certainly more than just, rate cuts or better fees. It really came from a place of providing solutions that were convenient to both the consumer and the small market, the larger markets, the bigger markets. So it really was out of a necessity and a need that we saw in the Caribbean. Remember, WePay operates within the Caribbean jurisdiction, which is just about 16 countries. So when you understand it that way, then for us, financial inclusion, which was one of our targets, was to actually bring the rest of the populace on board into a space where they could conduct business, because in the Caribbean, we don't have access to the same benefits that larger companies have through the use of PayPal or Stripe or any of the other big players in that space. So from that aspect, WePay came about really to help and assist and bring the people of the Caribbean, closer to what is happening to the rest of the world.
So how did you guys, a bunch of software people, come across the idea of starting WePay?
Well, I'd have to probably go back to the founder, which is Aldwin Wayne. So, him living in Trinidad, he'd have gone to a bank and, he tells this story all the time that there was an older gentleman in the bank, and this person, wanted to conduct business, but he didn't have all of his documents, he didn't have accounts, he didn't have anything that the bank was asking. And from that aspect, Aldwin was like, he realized that there was a huge underserved market in the space. And, he then set out, how could he solve this? He was a graduate from Georgia Tech and programming was his thing. So he wanted to use technology and what he learned as a programmer and as a coder to bring solutions that could assist the underbanked and the underbanked in their process of, conducting business on a whole. And of course, that passion and that desire to help and change, it mushroomed into this thing that we understand and know and call today WePay. And of course, when you start operating business from the Caribbean and realize that you can't necessarily just jump online and have someone purchase your goods and services. In fact, you don't even know how to get payments, via credit card without going to a bank and getting a machine. And of course, for someone who has a smaller business, doesn't have financials, how then do they process, payments online? How do then they get payments, with a credit card? Because they can't actually qualify for getting a point of sale machine. They don't qualify to be a bank customer. So that's really where it all started. So you have to give that props to Aldwin Wayne again, and that clandestine day of when he saw that problem with the old man in the bank.
Yeah, Wayne was supposed to be here today, but
Yes.
unfortunately, his flight is still delayed. He was
Yes.
traveling to Miami, I think. But that's an interesting story. Tell
In
me
fact,
from the regulatory point of view, when you operate in the Caribbean islands, and 16 of them. So, is there a central reporting authority? Is there a Reserve Bank of Caribbean, or who do you
no.
guys report to?
In fact, I really love that you asked that question. So, of the territories, right, each country literally has its own central bank. On the Eastern Caribbean side, there are about 4 countries that are actually grouped that actually have a central bank reporting, agreement between themselves, but everybody else operates basically independently. It's why the Caribbean has probably been so unattractive to larger players, because there's not one person to deal with. And of course, each country has a different, set of rules. They're governed by a different, government on a whole. So getting in is never an easy task. So we like to tell people that WePay is held to a higher standard simply because we have to report to so many central banks and regulatory authorities across the region. So WePay in that regard is so far ahead in terms of a single company being that first point of contact for outside companies want to come in and doing business with the Caribbean online. So that's something that we really pride ourselves on. Another thing is that if you actually check, WePay is the only licensed PayFac in the Caribbean, licensed by MasterCard and Visa. So we have that processing right for the entire region, whereas most banks, individual banks, only have that license for their particular country. WePay has that for the entire Caribbean. So that makes us very unique in this space, and also, very powerful. But from our side, how we look on power, and it's something we like to quote, with great power comes great responsibility. Our mission is not necessarily to, be the God per se in the space, but to use that power to now bring, the small man into the space and into business. One of the stories that I really love to share is my own journey into WePay. So prior to this, my background is in economics and banking, but I also do events. I do events across the region. And at the time, we were using PayPal on the back end of our site. And we from the Caribbean perspective, you go to the States, you open an account with a larger bank, right, that PayPal pays out to, and you get a debit card. And we then come back to the Caribbean and use that debit card at our ATMs, and we'd make the payouts. So after crossing a threshold, we probably crossed about somewhere in the region of 60 to 80,000 US. And PayPal flagged us, and they literally locked down our accounts for about a year and a half. We could not get any access to our money. If you actually check online, there's a whole lot of horror stories of people outside of the US that, engage companies such as PayPal, but after passing a threshold, they actually get locked down, and their monies get trapped. And without going to companies, like I went to something called the Better Business Bureau, and they were able to lobby my case for me to actually get my money. So on a particular trip to Miami, I'd have met Aldwin Wayne in a party, and I had an event in Trinidad, and when I was there, we literally couldn't work out how to pay our suppliers because now PayPal had blocked us. We had the card in the country and we couldn't move money. So I went through a range of scenarios. Can I Western Union that amount of money from Jamaica to Trinidad? And the fees behind that was somewhere in the region of 3,000 US. That was a no-go. Then I thought, maybe I need to fly in about 4 to 5 people from Jamaica with the physical cash and keep it below 10,000, because, if they're caught with 10,000, then now you've gone into the space of money laundering. So that was also not a solution. So in addition to that, because of the event in Trinidad at the time, which is so huge and attracts a huge audience, it's actually Trinidad Carnival, which is one of the biggest festivals in the Caribbean. You know, we couldn't even get flights, even if we want to fly in people with that kind of cash on them. So Aldwin had told me that he owned a company similar to PayPal, you know, when I first met him. But, you know, it really didn't register until I was in that moment of crisis. And I reached out to Aldwin, and, you know, literally he came in, he bailed out the event, and he said to me, you know, Kibbs, you're going to owe me one. And I was like, no problem. 2 weeks after returning to Jamaica, here comes COVID. Everything gets shut down. And of course, as you know, COVID has been a major accelerator in this space. Aldwin would have then reached out to me and said, Kibwe, so how about we bring WePay to Jamaica? And of course, I was fully on board, and, you know, this was it. So literally here I am, probably 1.5 years later.
So that's a very interesting story, and I'm very happy for you. I should have been at that party. Maybe I would have been a part of WePay. Patrick, we should attend more parties. You know, remind me that we are leading a pretty boring life nowadays. So, especially in the Caribbean. Yeah,
Yes.
so that's really cool life that you have. So please tell us more about WePay. Do you have a presentation to share for us?
Yes, I can actually pull that up right now. Let me do that.
Please.
So for WePay, right? The entire thing about our platform is e-commerce made easy. But really, you know, we facilitate any form of payments in the space, whether you're online or offline. So let me just go to the next slide and jump in. So literally, this is most of what I've probably discussed about WePay making receiving payments online easy through a suite of payment products. We're currently operating in Trinidad, Barbados, Guyana, St. Lucia, Grenada, Jamaica. We're in the Cayman Islands, and we're now moving into the Eastern Caribbean. So that, again, as I said, qualified us as being the largest e-commerce player in the space. Not e-commerce, but fintech. I'll get to the e-commerce section in a minute. So what does WePay offer? So much like what most people are familiar with, of course, we offer plugins for websites. We offer click-to-pay invoicing, payment links, but also we've recently moved into, you know, going into the technology with ePOS. You know, that's the latest direction for us. We're going into those restaurants. So now, like, if you're at a restaurant and you get a printout, it will come with a QR code. And from that, someone can literally scan that QR code and tap in their own information on their phone and pay it. So what essentially we're doing is basically bypassing even the need for businesses to actually have point of sales machines. As again, point of sales in the Caribbean is a very hard thing to get. If your business is not producing over a certain level, you won't qualify for a point of sale machine. In fact, Jamaica alone, by example, only has about 30,000 point of sale machines right now, with a need for somewhere in the region of about 200,000. So you understand that there's a massive gap for a market of Jamaica's size with just about 3 million people. Next slide. So WePay has free payment plugins. This is where actually going to the basics stuff that we offer in terms of our plugins. So for example, a lot of people in the Caribbean, we use a lot of third-party sites, not third-party sites, but we use a lot of zero coding websites. So you may be familiar with a Shopify, you may be familiar with a Wix, you may be familiar with Magento, WordPress, any of those solutions. And WePay has pre-built plugins. So once someone actually has a WePay account, you know, they can actually download those plugins for free, add it to their websites, and of course, be able to process online payments in their country, in their currency. So again, if you were in Trinidad, for example, you could put in that plugin and you could now process payments in local currency. What a lot of businesses prior had a problem with was the fact that they could only process payments in USD. And for some countries in the Caribbean, where, you know, US dollars is very scarce and the regulatory authorities try to manage the inflow and outflow of US dollars just to manage exchange rates, you know, that normally is a major problem. So we've made it possible that you can actually do business in your currency, which was something, you know, absent to the Caribbean for a long time. Oops, sorry, my bad. Scrolling with too many fingers. All right, so the payment link, pretty easy. I think a lot of you may be familiar with this already, but we give people the ability to create an invoice literally on their phone and share that link to anyone that they're doing business with. So you can send that link by WhatsApp, because WhatsApp is the major communication tool in the Caribbean. It's pretty similar to iMessage, obviously also owned by Facebook. But we can actually share that link anywhere that you can put a link, in an email, you can share it through Instagram, Facebook, any of the social spots. So this actually makes sense for a lot of small business owners, and of course, a lot of people who've now turned to that gig economy space. So we found that a lot of college students across the region actually have, you know, really gravitated to this form because, you know, of course, everyone now has their little Instagram business or their little side hustle, and the WePay V-Link has been something amazing for them. Of course, click to pay invoices basically operating on the same premise as the link, where you literally create an invoice and it will have a pay button and you pay. So I think everybody's basically familiar with those two. So who else uses WePay across the region? So I've probably listed a few companies here, which I suspect that you guys aren't necessarily familiar with, but let's just say the biggest telecoms in the region, the region's airline carrier, the biggest stores, insurance companies. And as I said, we also provide a white label solution for several banks who actually don't have the license to process credit cards. So that's something big as well. But one of the things that we're super proud about right now, especially in the midst of COVID, we made it a point of duty to actually try to get people back to business. So we came up with the WePay Development Fund for the region. We committed $1 million behind it, and we put that to work in several of the territories that we're in. So if you look here, you see government entities where WePay developed something called ENDS. This was actually an e-commerce national delivery system. Now, Jamaica had a series of lockdowns where, you know, we had entire days. So one of the things that the government, you know, challenged us with was, you know, how could we create a framework where delivery companies could actually move about and get food? So they needed a system that identified, one, the staff for these companies, the restaurant owners, the riders, the workers inside those restaurants, so that, you know, when they came up to police blockades, you know, they could definitely show that, hey, I'm part of the end system. So WePay, you know, gave them a QR code identifier that the police would actually scan, and, you know, they were able to then, you know, recognize that this person is with that company. And from there, you know, they could then move to a restaurant and then get paid. But because this framework had never really existed in the Jamaican space, and a lot of consumers were more used to, you know, going to a restaurant and paying, you know, this really accelerated our online delivery service and payment options. So WePay developed ENDS, which was a major success, and something that literally up till last Sunday was a lockdown recently, you know, we had to order food and it was through ENDS. So that's a major win. We also developed the Caribbean's first cashless farmers market. This again, you know, us, you know, getting in with ePOS, the same QR code technology. So what we did, we actually set up a booth at a massive farmers space. We had our people come in, you know, consumers, and they'd put cash in and they'd get a QR code. That QR code was then transported to, not transported, that QR code, when the consumers went to the farmers, they were able to exchange that QR code for goods, and then that farmer would be confident that that money would end up in his account. So WePay developed all of that technology. We also do something major, again, on the other side of the Caribbean, where for maintenance monies, you know, a lot of people would normally have to go into the courts to pay maintenance money for like child support and any other court fees. But of course, during lockdowns, you know, it made it really difficult for people to, you know, go to the courts, pay that money. Of course, you had a lot of children who were basically suffering as a result. So WePay developed an entire system called Court Pay, where people now were able to buy vouchers from several stores across that region, and then, you know, literally load that money online and pay their maintenance money, and that would go straight to the recipient's account. So those were major wins for us, you know, during COVID, something that we're very happy about. And we did several grants, you know, in a very similar fashion. Our mission really was to take cash out of the system because cash had been identified as a super spreader of the COVID-19 virus. So I'll just move on to the next slide. So as I like to say, and which we probably explained before, that WePay is actually held to a higher standard. We are a MasterCard partner. In fact, MasterCard literally invested in WePay and in our technology. And of course, you know, we have the same compliance rules as any of the big banks that we have to honor. So you see the compliance there, PCI, DCIS, Visa, MasterCard, secure code, and of course, again, regulated by all of the central banks. This is actually one of our banking partners in Jamaica, which is FGB, because WePay is actually partnered with a bank in every country. So we actually made that pretty easy in terms of, you know, jumping on board with banks. So that worked out. Check the next thing. So the WePay payment solutions. So one thing that was really absent to the Caribbean was that, you know, banks, you know, were really, you know, killing consumers with fees. So when you have a WePay point of sale machine, you know, you may all be familiar with that bank processing fee. So when you have that, what would happen is that the merchant would have to absorb all of those fees. WePay now gave the merchant the ability to pass on all of those fees to the consumer, or split those fees 50-50 or absorb it. So that has been something, you know, that has been super attractive to small businesses, especially when you know, you're playing with margins, you know, every dollar counts. So having the ability to pass on those fees to consumers, you know, is a major win, you know, and we've just basically titled that as a convenience fee. Of course, our plug to pay solutions with our plugins, again, that was super attractive. And something that I'd really like to share, and probably, you know, when I come out of this presentation, I'll show you guys, was that, you know, in our efforts to advance the Caribbean, we actually, you know, secured a Guinness World Book record. So I'll pull that up in a little bit when I jump in. And that's basically the end of this presentation. But what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to pull up the Guinness presentation just to show you where we're at. I'm going to stop sharing screen for a minute and probably allow you guys to ask a few questions while I get the other material ready. So let me just stop share. You guys can, yeah, just feel free to ask me a few questions while I get the other material ready.
Sure. Let's have a look at that also. Of course, I have some questions.
Sure.
But no, WePay is a total disruption as I see it. And more than the technology, of course, you guys have built the technology, but the technology was always available. So more than the
Yes.
technology, I think it is the application of technology that was the disruption. You guys have really done the application very well in reaching out to the common man. So it's big. The applications of knowledge is always bigger than the knowledge itself.
For sure, for sure. So you are very right in terms of the technology existing before. And a lot of the solutions that we developed, you know, we literally examined, you know, what was happening in the first world. And as I said, tailored it for the Caribbean market. And because of WePay's partnerships, which were regional, you know, we were really able to really jump into several markets, which would have, you know, which at the onset is definitely a block. You know, no one can just run into the Caribbean. So, you know, I tell people all the time, instead of trying to run into the Caribbean and fight against us, it's better you give us a call and let's talk about how we can partner to make stuff happen. So let me just pull up this Guinness thing now. Anybody have any more questions, by the way? While I pull this up.
More like a comment. It sounds like the regulatory or the limitations of the region was one thing that gave you a big opportunity. But I think it's also interesting how COVID really boosted a lot of the growth and also the opportunities, right? And I think I think that's where you see a lot of traditional businesses who really suffered with COVID, but there are also small businesses who had the ability to adapt. And you seem like an excellent example of that, who really, I mean, COVID has basically boosted a lot of the things you're doing and have done.
Of
So
course.
how old is WePay exactly?
WePay is actually 4 years old come April next year.
Okay. And how many consumers do you have roughly?
Right now we're just about to cross that 60,000 mark.
Interesting.
Yeah, what you have to understand, right? The Caribbean man literally has a fear of technology. So when you start to move people, you know, to tell them that their money is held, you know, can actually be, you know, within a virtual space. Firstly, he's still very afraid of what you mean when you say virtual. Like, I can't see my money. Like, I can't just go somewhere and pull it out. Like, where's that money? And also, because of years of distrust that has built up between the banks and the consumer, excessive fees, and all of the other problems that are associated with money, we found that there's a great distrust in the space. But of course, COVID accelerated the need to look at money completely differently. So one of the things that WePay is working on, which you know, it's pretty fresh, but we're working on moving towards a regional settlement network. Right now, for any money to be settled between Caribbean countries, that money literally through SWIFT has to go to the US and then back to another Caribbean country. So for even in Jamaica, for example, if you were here and you had a USD Jamaican account and I had a USD Jamaican account, making that transfer, that money has to go to the States and then come right back to that account, which already exists in Jamaica. And, you know, we literally found that to be a problem. So we are literally developing the technology and the solution behind that to, you know, basically create our own exchange, our own stable coin per se. And, you know, we're working with a big team. You know, one of our partners for that is a group called MTech that, you know, is doing a lot of work right now in Africa with the Ghanaian government in terms of also developing their stable coin and that whole process and system. So WePay is really looking at the entire market and really looking to create a solution that will change the entire game.
So WePay is also working on a wallet, a e-wallet where people can just buy anything small, big, anything.
Oh, for sure, but we prefer to stay away from the term wallet. That comes with a lot of regulatory drama. But yes, WePay allows for peer-to-peer transfers between accounts and also the payment of utility bills through your WePay account. We like to say account versus wallet.
Sure.
In fact, what I'm going to do right now, I'm actually going to pull up the WePay dashboard so that you guys can actually see that. So let me go back to sharing screen. Let me just jump back in here. Let's go to share screen. Sorry. Oh, let me make this bigger. Share screen. Let's go here. Sure. You guys are seeing my screen? You seeing screen?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So this is actually my WePay account here in Jamaica, and I'm gonna jump into that right now. Just jumping in. So this is what our platform is built on. This is what it looks like. Sorry, let me minimize the Zoom screen so I can actually see. So this gives a person the ability to really, you know, review their entire account. So when anyone is doing a transaction, it's really easy to see. I'll just show you stuff like right now. Opening up. So for example, this is literally how it works. So if I wanted to withdraw money from my account, I'd put in the figure, just put $1,000, 10. Withdraw money, oops, amount, oh, sorry. I need to put in more than that money. Give me a second, $3,000. Oh, my account cannot be less. Oh, forgive me. I have no money in my Jamaican account. That's funny. That's very funny. Let me pull that from my, I can't have the account go below 150 Jamaican dollars. So forgive me. Let me go to my US balance and show you what that would look like. Let's shift this to, and this is actually a pretty big thing in the Caribbean again, because as I said, you know, USD is very scarce. So, you know, once we connect our, well, I cannot pull that either because I'm trying to pull too much money. All right, I needed to probably have loaded this account to show you. So we do keep the money within the framework with our partnered banks. So we do have minimums that we don't allow people to go below, so that at least it keeps the account active. But again, here's a couple of things that I think you guys just asked me about. This is WePay Me, which is pretty similar to PayPal Me, which is really just about, you know, having a link. So I can go, you know, go to link, and this literally allows anyone from anywhere of the world to send me money. So once I send them this WePay Me link, if they wanted to send me 2,000 Jamaican dollars, this is what it would look like. And literally, you know, it could be a case where, you know, we split the fees, or the fees is deducted from the above amount, and we show all of that. I can send that message. I tap next, and you know, after that, it's going to pull up our partner bank and allow me to put in my credit card information to send that money. So right now, anyone in the Caribbean can receive money by this process. It is pretty close to remittance. But then again, we try to stay away from competing in the remittance space, because we are partnered with the second largest remittance company in the world, which is RIA, for the region. So ultimately, WePay is also built upon a series of partnerships with multinational businesses that then, you know, we brought back to the Caribbean to make their lives easy. So instead of going to that familiar brick or mortar and lining up in lines, you know, WePay has become that solution for RIA, where that money now is sent and deposited directly to people's accounts. Again, that was one of the deals that came out of this COVID space, because of course, social distancing was a major thing. But this is really the platform, and I could literally, like, you know, go in and show you more. In fact, I'll start with this one, WeShops. And this was a zero code website. Let me log into WeShops. This is actually the Caribbean's first zero code website that was developed by WePay. And we literally did this because we wanted to assist a lot of small businesses within that time, you know, really to have the ability to jump online and participate in e-commerce. So, you know, it literally comes with all of the solutions that you'd need for an online business. This is actually the backend. So this is actually not the website that a person would create, but this backend now would allow that person the ability to build a site pretty easy. As I said, it's drag and drop. So no one would need a coder, no one would need a developer. And once we launched this in the middle of COVID, and we called it Project 1000. So in Jamaica and other countries, we gave away 1,000 e-commerce ready platforms, websites, I mean, for free. And in giving that away, we also, you know, kind of discovered that, you know, even though it was zero code and they didn't need a coder, we still kind of needed to walk people through the process. In doing that online, it resulted in, you know, WePay, let me get that off my screen. It resulted in WePay actually securing a Guinness World Record, because we know actually hosted the most users on a web development. And this was actually through, you know, we did this big virtual Zoom meeting, and we probably had a couple thousand people online at the same time learning how to build a WeShops website, you know, and getting them e-commerce ready. So if you actually see this photo where I'm actually, you know, circling the cursor, this was the moment that we know that we had smashed the record, you know, after the presentation, which was pretty super. So you can actually go onto the Guinness World Records website and actually see that. And, you know, I was happy to have led that movement, you know, with a very strong WePay team. If you see my cursor again, this is the entire WePay team that supported us from the back end in Trinidad and in Jamaica. So something we're very proud about, very excited about as well. So that all came about from COVID and our desire to, you know, assist. And another thing I'd love to share is that, you know, we're here speaking about terminals, you know, and the fact that we're moving towards a space where we don't need terminals, but WePay also has its own terminal factory. As you can see there, that's our brand, and it's developed for this region. And it's the smartest terminal in its space because it literally uses Android technology on the front. It looks more like a phone. It has a camera at the back. So these terminals are also smart with the ability to read QR codes and additional information. So again, we're not just here copying and you know, repurposing solutions. We're actually here developing our own solutions and our own proprietary software in a way that's tailored to work for the Caribbean.
Thank you, Kibe, for that. That was a pretty exciting presentation. I have a couple of questions. We have time for two or three questions before we sign off for the day. That every customer who comes on to WePay, does he require?
I'm hearing a loud noise. I didn't hear you a while ago. Sorry.
Yeah. So every customer who comes on to WePay, does he require a bank account with a partner bank?
Right now, they actually do need a bank account, but we are working on a solution that would require them not to have a bank account, because as a MasterCard partner, we do have the license to issue our own card. With that ability, what is going to happen is now that people will be able to conduct business and actually have their money go directly to their card. And of course, as you guys would know, based on what MasterCard and Visa would have issued to the region, and I guess to the rest of the regions they operate, every debit card must now come, you know, Master or Visa card enabled, which also works on the existing ATM platform. So now you'll be able to do business online, have your money transferred directly from your WePay account to your card, so you can then go to an ATM.
How soon can we expect that? How soon can we expect that tie-up?
Right now, we're looking at January, February before we release the first card in the space. So we've already gone down the space of printing. We have our own card. It's called the Rebel card. If you actually, I mean, if I had time, I'd pull it up on the screen, but if you Google it, it's actually there. So we already have the cards in hand. Right now, it's just about the mechanism of distributing that across the region.
Superb. That is something that we can definitely look forward to. No bank accounts and directly dealing with WePay. So thank you very much, Kibbe, for being here. Do we have any questions, Dr. Mitesh, Usha ji?
I have a question.
Sure.
Hello.
Hello, I hear you.
I have a question, Kibbe. The screenshots which you showed were all in English. I want to have an idea whether for transaction purposes you do have the facility to also transact in the local language?
We do have that facility to convert to local language. We've not enabled it yet because we're only operating in the English side of the Caribbean. But the site actually has the ability to convert, you know, to whatever language that, you know, our consumer is coming from. So it can be done.
Okay. And what is the most common language in Jamaica?
English. In fact, English is the #1 language across this side of the world. If you're omitting Cuba and Donrep, which speak Spanish and have populations in the million.
I have one more question, Kibwe.
Sure.
You were saying that in the Caribbean there are multiplicity of central banks, and you were able to kind of bring them all onto the same page. Can you slightly elaborate on that? Because I had an echo at that time. The reason I'm asking this question is I think you're diversifying into West Africa, right? Through MTech for Ghana.
Correct. WePay is working with
Yeah, and it's a very similar situation in Africa. They have a multiplicity of central banks.
So literally what it meant for us was that we literally had to go to each of those countries and sit with their government and their central bank and, literally, do have them, do their due diligence country had a different, different things that we had to come to, different things that we had to qualify for. So it really is or has been part of our mission over the last 2 years. I mean, all the vision was always for a regional solution. So a lot of WePay's efforts are focused on getting things. So before we jump into any country, it starts with their government and with their central bank. One of the things that we have done in the past, and again, WePay is built primarily on partnerships. We normally partner with a bank within the country, which then automatically has us fall under the regulatory system. So for Jamaica, we're partnered with First Global Bank, and we basically operate under their cover as a partner.
So necessarily you have a tie-up with a bank in every geography that you work in.
Yes,
but
because
that
we need a
would
big
be,
sponsor.
yeah. But that would not be necessary or essential come February, because then you will work directly with MasterCard and have your own card.
Correct.
So then you will be responsible for the KYC, the Know Your Customer documents.
Of course.
Oh, very nice. Then you are a CASI bank.
WePay. Yeah, that's a term that the Caribbean is afraid of. So I like to stay away from that side.
Yeah,
people get very afraid of that statement.
No, then I like the lines on which you are operating. Bank, no bank, bank, no bank. That's the perfect place to be. But let's take that offline.
I'll share something right now. If you actually check online, WePay recently with the Grenada government. The Grenada government passed a law in Grenada for WePay to launch its own digital currency, which is the WeCoin. That literally is going to be the basis of our settlement network, because again, now we'd have the ability of moving WePay to WePay money, so to say, across the region based on that law that has just been passed. So as I said, we're pretty far ahead in the game, and our partnerships and our agreements have solidified our space. So really, we are the giant in the space. And again, with great power comes great responsibility.
No, that is absolutely amazing. I have a horde of questions, but let's take it offline. Your business model is very interesting. I'm sure Ushaji also has a horde of questions, but I would invite her to the offline thing wherein we can discuss business possibilities. So maybe thank you very much for being with us. Sorry?
Maybe fly to Vegas.
Yeah, I told you, you're the man. Pulling off a stunt like that, you're the man. Yeah, I could never pull off such a stunt. So a business convention in Vegas does not fly. I can easily come to Jamaica if you want. That works for me. Trinidad definitely, because we are in talk with a lot of people from Trinidad and Tobago to help us in our forthcoming ESG exchange. And people have been very receptive about that. So I will reach out to you for that also in the next week or so. And regarding this offline business discussion, Dr. Mitesh will give you a tinkle. Let's take it offline. Thank you very much for being with us, Kibwe. This was a very nice presentation. I'm very excited about WePay, and I look forward to February where you can open accounts directly with MasterCard. I will probably try and open an account with WePay Fast Touch. Yeah. Thank you, Ushaji, for being here. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, guys.